As promised, we decided to do some interviews and put them out there so that everyone can see them. Our very first interview is a special one. We are going to meet with a retired firefighter and inventor, the owner of Hinge Hero, someone who's not only gone through the process of open call at Walmart, got a gold ticket, but did the heavy lifting and actually got onto the shelf. So we're going to talk about his journey. Up next, George Zalucki. Here we go, the very first interview ever for Ready for Retail. George, welcome.
Hello, Brian. It's great to be with you again.
Awesome. We're going to dive into it. We've told everyone a little bit about you, but I'd like to go back in history to the Wayback Machine and just talk a little bit about where you kind of come from and how you got this journey started. I know we're going to everyone wants to hear about open call. Everyone wants to hear about the golden ticket. But I think it's really important that we talk about the process, right? Everything for Ready for Retail is about educating people. And the more that we get really good information to them, the better equipped they are in their own businesses. So if you don't mind, give us a little bit of a background of where you came from, how you came up with this idea, and how you got it patented.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Brian. Thank you for having me on. First of all, as you mentioned in the intro, I am a retired firefighter. I came down to Florida in 2014 and went to work for a large national builder. And during that process in the sales department, I was engaging with customers and, of course, our model homes out in the field. And one of the things that really frustrated me was when I showed a customer a brand new home, a brand new model home. Quite often we'd have squeaky door hinges. And it was very frustrating trying to sell a new home and have that feeling that these folks feeling like, geez, these are old squeaky hinges. It just didn't work. So I frequently went out and oiled the door hinges manually with a can of WD-40 and a roll of paper towels. I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. So one afternoon I was in the sales office and I went out and I just looked at a door hinge. And I thought to myself, how can we fix this problem? Door hinges have been squeaking for centuries. And nobody that I could find has a solution to quickly and easily lubricate and stop the squeaky door hinges from happening. So what I did is I came up with an idea. It's basically a cylinder that slides over the door hinge. And I came home from work that afternoon and I went inside my pantry and I pulled out a tube of Airborne. And that Airborne was actually a perfect cylinder that I could modify, that I modified with a Dremel tool to slide over the door hinge. And so that was my very first working rough prototype. And I just thought that it was something that would definitely work. So after that, the revisions came in, and then I took it to the next level. But I don't want to get ahead of some of your questions, but that's initially how Hinge Hero started, was because I was frustrated. There was a need. I wanted to solve a problem. And then I just kept working towards solving that problem over time. Yeah, I think one of the early challenges for me, anyway, is as I told you, I had kind of my rough prototype, and it worked. It wasn't perfect because it didn't fit perfectly over a hinge. It was a little bit large. So what I decided to do was invest in a 3D printer, and I taught myself how to CAD design. It's a pretty simple design, so it's not like I had to get a 4-year degree in CAD to do it. But it was part of the process. So I had to take that time, but I was committed to the device. I really thought that this is something that would be special and that the market could use. So after I did my first 3D printing of my tool, of course, I went through many different revisions over a period of time. But I would say I don't want to say it was frustrating. That was actually very fun doing that. It was a great challenge, and I enjoyed it very much. It was very satisfying to finally have that version of Hinge Hero come off my 3D printer that worked perfectly. But there were some, obviously some steps that I had to overcome in order to get it to a place where now I can start sending those 3D drawings out to mold producers, so I can start working on the tooling. Yeah, so Brian, that took a lot of time. I do want to say this to anybody that's watching and may be frustrated. They have an idea, they put it on a bar napkin, and now they go, "Geez, what do I do next?" I would just say I was in the same pair of shoes. I was in the same situation, and what you need to do is just logically think through the steps to keep moving your idea forward. And really, a great resource for me was the internet. Thank God for YouTube because I learned a lot on YouTube. And then, of course, I did my due diligence. I researched tooling companies and packaging companies. And at that point, it's about building relationships and finding the best fit as far as what company you're going to use for tooling and manufacturing and packaging. But it did take some time. I created my company in Hinge Hero in 2018, and it wasn't until a couple years later that everything kind of came together. I was ready to launch to market. Well, originally, I was looking at cost. And obviously, before 2020, before the pandemic, doing business overseas in Asia was a lot easier and it was a lot less expensive than American tooling. So my first round of Hinge Hero was done through an Asian contact, and then they did the tooling, and they sent me my first batch of 2,000 units. And that was my initial test. What I did with the initial product is I put it online. I put it on a couple different platforms. I opened up an Amazon account, and that is a whole new world of learning just to get your product on Amazon. And going through that whole process is a chore in itself. But I completed that, and then I put it on a couple other platforms, eBay and Etsy, and a couple others, I believe. And then I wanted to kind of get proof of market to see whether or not this product sold. Let me take you back a step. Before I did that, I passed my prototypes out to friends and family, and I wanted them to check it out. And my feedback was 100% positive. They absolutely loved the tool. They loved the way it worked. They loved everything about it. So that kept pushing me forward. Then I made the investment in the tooling, my first shipment, the 2,000 units. I put that out to market, and that told me I have something very viable here. So I took the next steps.
That's awesome. I think people underestimate the validation process. I think everyone has an idea and then they show it to their friends, and their friends are like, yeah, it's great. Or their mom's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But that next step of validation, when you start talking to people you don't know, is where kind of that the rubber hits the road, where it's like, oh, this is real. This person doesn't have any vested interest in me. And I think that transition sometimes trips people up, because it's one thing to be able to sit and talk to your mom, right, who you know dearly, and you're like, hey, mom, I've got this idea. And you just kind of fumble around a little bit and you show it, and she loves everything that you've probably ever done. And that's one thing. But to
Sure.
be able to clean up a pitch, to be able to clearly articulate to a perfect stranger, this is what the problem is, this is what it solves, take a look at it, and to get that feedback is one of those steps that I think it's painful. I think it's a little scary for people, but kudos, because that's the only way you're really going to know whether or not this dog is going to hunt, right? That's it.
Yeah, you're 100% right. At some point in time, you either have to say, you know what, I'm cashing in my chips, I'm out, or you have to make an investment in you, in your beliefs, and your marketing. So I decided, I had enough information. Information is very powerful when you first begin with a product, and the investment of the 2,000 units in the tool was not extraordinary, but and I thought, you know what, it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk, and I'm glad I took that step.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you took that step too,
Oh, thank you.
or we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
There you go.
So let's transition a little bit into the Walmart open call world. And
Perfect.
if you could just kind of explain a little bit of how you heard about it, what were your first initial thoughts, kind of take a dive back into the old brain and say, hey, this is what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah. So in I think it was January of 2021, Brian, Open Call was posted on RangeMe. And as you know, that's a platform that connects suppliers with buyers, right? And so I put in the application, And it wasn't until I think it was February, maybe a month or two later, that Walmart actually got back to me and said, "Hey, look, you've been accepted to come to this open call." Now there was a prerequisite. Your tool or your product needed to be made in the USA. Fortunately, at that time, probably 2 months before that, I made a decision to bring the tooling and manufacturing right here to the USA. So everything really lined up perfectly at that time. So the my USA mold and tooling was being performed at the same time that the open call application process was happening. So I actually had my first batch of USA made tools ready to go for the open call event.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk a little bit about that. I do want to take one step back because it's important. I get asked the question all of the time, which is, should I move my manufacturing to the US? Is it worth it? Will it get me an in with a buyer? I have my own theories and thoughts that we've talked about, but I'd love to hear kind of what your thought process was around moving your production to the US.
Yeah, there are a couple things. First of all, I bleed red, white, and blue, and to me, it's very important that if it's fiscally possible to have your product made in the USA, right? So I think because of the COVID situation, where manufacturing costs went up over in China, um, in 2021 the US, I was able to kind of, and it took a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I had to call a lot of different manufacturers to get a deal that I thought was good. And it just so happened to be only an hour and a half away from where I live down here in South Florida. So that worked out perfectly. But I think it's very important to make that decision if it's right for you financially. And wouldn't you know, at the same time that I made that decision, or shortly thereafter, the Walmart open call opportunity came along, and that was required to be made in the USA. So I would strongly suggest, if you can do it and the finances make sense, uh, try to get made in the USA.
Yeah, I always counsel people make good decisions because of good reasons.
Yep.
Don't think, well, if I move my product to the US, Walmart's going to take it. That's not the right decision to be made. If you're like, I can do it because I want to do it, it's something I believe in, and you've alluded to it a couple times, which is it has to financially make sense, right? If you make something in, overseas for $5 and it's $50, like there's just some instances that it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
But there is always the question, does it really matter to a retailer? And the answer is yes. Like I always tell people that when you're sitting down with a buyer, your goal is to check as many boxes as you can, right? A buyer's got 100 things they're trying to check off. And the more boxes you can check off, the better, right? The better opportunity that you have. And for some retailers, made in the USA is a box that they absolutely love checking off. So it's one of those things that is not black and white. There's a lot of gray in there, but do it for the right reason. Do it because you want to do it. Do it because the industry is okay with it. Don't just do it because you think that you're going to get a sale from it.
No, you're 100% right. My situation was completely coincidental. I just so happened to be ramping up tooling and production right here in the USA, and all of a sudden Walmart came out. And guess what? If it wasn't made in the USA, I wouldn't be in Walmart. Period. End of story. Because that was what the requisite of the open call was in 2022.
So tell me a little bit about the process of getting into Open Call.
Well, the process, of course, the first thing is filling out the application, right? So you have to fill out the application. And they ask for a bunch of business information, product information, pricing information on their questionnaire, and they require like a Dun and Bradstreet number, UL testing. You have to be EDI capable. You have to be a GSI member, and you have to have shelf-ready packaging. So you have to do your homework and have that done before Walmart will accept you to open call. Now, with that said, I want to make something clear. I didn't have all of that done. I didn't have the Dun and Bradstreet done. I didn't have UL testing yet. I didn't have EDI capability yet. But that's something that you commit that you will do. I think they decide on the merits of your application based on the product and your company and whether or not you'd be a good fit.
So what was that like when you got the actual acceptance letter? Do you remember like a feeling or like a
Yeah.
sense of relief or, oh crap, what did I just do?
No, I was elated. It was such a great feeling of accomplishment because um, 3 weeks earlier, I was actually rejected from being a Shark Tank contestant. I went through the whole process on Shark Tank. I sent in the video. I had a producer that contacted me on the regular. And then at the last minute, obviously, they have to cut a lot of people, and I was rejected. And literally 3 weeks later, I was accepted by Walmart. So it worked out. So those two things happening at the same time, I was elated. Great
Awesome.
experience.
What did you have any expectations for open call before you got there? Was there something you're like, I really think this is going to happen or this is not, or kind of the frame of mindset that you had when you were kind of thinking about getting in there?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question because what I would advise anybody walking into a pitch, whether it's Walmart or any other retailer, is that you have to have a positive attitude. I expected to come out of there with a deal. That was my aura, right? And you were with me, and that was your aura, right?
Yeah,
So you go in and you've got a positive attitude, and of course you have to be well prepared, you have to be positive, and you have to have the expectation that you're going to walk out of there with a ticket. You've got to learn your product. You need to learn to articulate the benefits of your product. So working on your pitch deck and your delivery is very important. But you know what? My expectations were I'm going to come out of there with a golden ticket, and it happened.
that's awesome. Yeah, so the cat's out of the bag, right? George and I worked together. We have worked together for years. Actually, probably started talking right about the time you were looking to move your production from China to the US.
It was very
So,
close, Brian. Actually, I was looking back in August of 2021 is when I contacted you, and then we began working together August of 2021.
yeah, so this is for all. If you haven't gone to getreadyforretail.com, go there. We've got a great story. You'll see George's face all over the place as a founder. But let's keep on. I do want to talk a little bit about pitching. Pitching is one of those things that I think it either excites people or just scares the crap out of people. Right? Some people just don't like being in that situation. They don't like the pressure of it. Some people, like yourself, do very well. So, as you're getting ready to sit in front of Walmart, what are the things you're thinking about and what are the things that you're doing to get ready?
Yeah, that's another great question. Preparation is really paramount. You have to make sure that your pitch deck is dialed in. Of course, you have to rehearse your pitch deck and your pitch. And what I did is be familiar with your retailer. So going out and visiting Walmart stores is something that I did. And I really suggest everybody do that. No matter what retailer you're working with, know their stores. And what I actually did, Brian, and you know this, but I'll tell the audience, is that I took my tools with me, all packaged up, and I actually put them on the shelf like they were actually an item that you could buy right there in Walmart to give that impression to the buyers that, hey, this is retail ready, this is ready to go, and try to make that connection. I think it was successful. But you have to prepare for your meeting. You have to prepare with a pitch deck and do what you can to connect the retailer with your product.
Yeah. You alluded to something that it drives me nuts, by the way. I will talk to people on the phone. So I talk to people every week on ideas, companies, things that are trying to get into Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever it is. And I just talked to someone, and you would be surprised how many people I talk to that are like, I think my product would be great at Walmart and Walmart this and Walmart that. And you ask them two questions, and it is obvious they've never even walked into a Walmart. And boy, I will get on a soapbox and talk for 7.5 years.
Yeah.
If you really want to do business with a retailer, you better be in their store constantly. We're actually going to come out with you'll appreciate this, a guide and template to how to walk a store. I think people that have been in the industry like myself for 26 years take it for granted, but people in your shoes that are just getting started might not think about this, but you can learn so much about a retailer, about your category, about your competition by just walking into the stores and look, take pictures, move product, talk to people in the aisle. There's a lot you can do inside of a store that I think people underestimate.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. That's part of doing your homework and your due diligence. Know your retailer, know your competition too. I mean, if you got an appointment with Walmart, you know what? Go to Lowe's and go to Home Depot and go to some other retailers and kind of see what the vibe is in those different stores, and present your product to that particular buyer with their kind of spin on it. And I think it's extraordinarily helpful to do your homework, walk the stores, and even take it to the degree where I my takeaways were like high energy. When we're in that complex, high energy. There was many sellers going through the exact same process I was going to. So I had a chance to chat with other suppliers and talk to them and kind of feel their anxiety and their confidence at the same time. So it was great to get that feedback from somebody else that's doing the same thing you are. And Walmart offered workshops and presentations in their auditorium throughout the event. So that was good. We were able to engage with the CEOs there on stage, and a lot of the high corporate level folks were there, and they were talking all of us through the process and understanding the Walmart brand. That was very helpful as well. But it was high energy, and it's an experience I'll never forget.
Did you find it nerve-wracking, or did you think the energy and the way they presented helped the nerves, or did it make you even more nervous?
Yeah, you know what, Brian? I wasn't nervous at all, right? I felt really good because you and I collaborated on everything, right? We bounced it back and forth, and you were there assisting me through this process as well, which was extraordinarily helpful because Brian knows the language of Walmart and he speaks it very well. And in that presentation, Brian's role in that was to really kind of translate, if you will, from the Walmart buyers to me, the guy that's doing this for the very first time. But I wasn't anxious. I wasn't nervous. Again, my expectations were I was going to come out of there with a ticket, and the experience was just great for me. Now, if you recall, we were in. I don't want to get ahead of it, but I'm going to kind of explain what the room looked like if you're okay with me going forward. So. The actual presentations are done in a relatively small office space. And, if you've got any kind of displays or samples, you have to bring those in with you. I had a suitcase just filled with my displays and all my product. So, and your computer, right? And that's where your slide deck is, on your computer. So the first thing you do is you get in there and you set everything up on the table. And then you plug in your computer and you pray to God there's no technical glitches. I got to say, Brian, that was probably the highest level anxiety I had, was making sure that everything was ready for the presentation. There were no glitches or setbacks. But if you recall, we were in that room and we didn't know who was going to come in. We thought maybe one person. And guess who comes in? We had 4 corporate buyers walk in. And one of them was the lead buyer. He was the head honcho, Chris. And, we just took it from there. But that was kind of, I just wanted to give you the setup of the space that the actual pitch occurred in.
Yeah. So I do want to actually go through the pitch, right? But I do want to take a step back because I think it's really important for people that were in your shoes that are watching this to understand your train of thought. Okay. And we've talked around it, and we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. When did you decide, and why did you decide to bring someone like me with you into that room?
Well, that was an easy decision. That's probably one of the easiest decisions I ever had. I mean, I remember when Walmart returned me with a yes to open call. I shot you an email and said, "Hey, are you in?" And you're like, "Of course." And so from that point forward, and you were very supportive and surprised at the same time, and enthusiastic. And then we started working. We started collaborating online because you're down in Montana and up in Montana. I'm down in Florida, so we did a lot of collaboration through the internet, which is fantastic. But your assistance in this whole thing, Brian, was invaluable. It was again, the way that you can speak the Walmart language, the acronyms, all that stuff. You did a great job, and having so much experience in the retail space, um, it was a perfect setup. That's what I will say. It was perfect.
Yeah, it's funny in my business. A lot of times I don't go typically don't go through open call, right? I usually do it the old fashioned way, which is get a hold of
Right.
buyers, go through line review process, things like that. A lot of times I won't even bring owners with, to be honest, because there's a certain amount of control inside of the room that needs to happen. And I've just seen people get really nervous and have a hard time with that. And a lot of buyers like or owners are like, I don't even want to be there, like it's too much. I think it's important for an owner to be there when they're to tell the story, to tell that beginning part. And I think people brush over that story way too often. And when you think about like flow and you think about like we're going to go from A to B to Z, we're going to talk about the problem, we're going to talk about the solution, we're going to talk about the customer, all the stuff that a lot of people know. Buyers are human beings. They love stories. They love hearing how something came about. And boy, this is still a relationship game. This is still, we haven't gotten to the point where AI is buying products, thank the good Lord. But with that human interaction, that storytelling is really, really important. That said, I know for a fact that you would have gotten the golden ticket with or without me. Like there's some time I can very honestly say, and I'm grateful for being there. I'm grateful for the partnership that we have from it. But I've been in the room enough to know what would work and what would not work, and you would have been fine without me. And I think the key is preparation. If there's one thing that I've heard, and I hope that everyone's listening to, is the amount of work, detail, organization, and preparation that you put into everything you do, which is transparent here. That preparation is what is key, right? And if you're one of those people that's not that person, that's fine. A lot of entrepreneurs are idea people. They're people that are like, I've got a million ideas and they're hustlers, but they're not organized. Go get yourself someone who's organized and prepared to help you, right? That is just one of those things that you're not going to push yourself over the finish line without being highly prepared.
Yeah, well said, Brian. Well said. And thank you for your accolades. But I will say that you are a large part of our success with Hinge Hero at Walmart. Don't undersell yourself. You offer a great service, and just having you in the room put me at ease. I think one of the important things to do, and it's what I do, is I try to translate my enthusiasm about my product. And when you're doing that pitch, you mentioned it earlier, it's relationship building. But when you're pitching to retail buyers, if they don't feel the energy from the person that is involved with the product intimately, then you know what? That they probably may have some questions, right? So I wanted to translate my enthusiasm and my belief in the product while also educating them on the benefits of Hinge Hero.
So let's jump back into that room. We were in a very tight room. Just so you know, I went through open call this year. They are in their new facilities and the rooms are way nicer. But
Oh, good.
when you and I were in that little tiny room, four buyers kind of talk through a little bit of the pitch itself, like what your thoughts around what was important to convey, what was the points you were trying to drive home. Were you paying attention to the buyer interactions and how were they interacting?
Yeah, absolutely. I was aware of everything. And, when we started in the pitch, I thought it was, I don't want to say it was flawless. I'd like to hear your feedback, but you and I were both very, very happy with the presentation. And I think what I paid particular attention to was, making sure I hit all the highlights, all the points. Walmart in their application process, in the preparation for your pitch, they do give you a series of bullet points that you have to discuss during your pitch. So there is some guidance there. So I wanted to be very clear on all of those points and make sure I conveyed the information that they were looking for. But at the same time, I'm looking at body language, right? That's a huge communicator for me. And you have to make sure if you have four retail buyers in your room, you want to make sure you engage with each one of them at some point in your presentation. So that's what I felt. I felt the energy coming back from them that I was giving. And so as we progressed, I said, "Boy, this is feeling right." And then, of course, during your parts of the presentation, you hit it spot on, which just basically layered in just a very professional presentation that I wouldn't change a thing looking back.
Yeah, I agree. It's the one thing that I appreciated the most is a lot of times in a sales situation, we clearly identified who owned what, so you don't have to worry about talking over people. You don't have to worry, like, that is coaching advice like 101. Being in a meeting, neither one of us bulldozed, neither one of us snoozed. Like,
No.
these are just terms, like, we've all been in a situation, whether it's just a dinner with family and someone's trying to tell a story and someone just comes in and crashes it and ruins everything. Like, those are really big call outs when you're in that situation. A lot of times because you are so jacked up. Now, I will say, part of you being a retired firefighter, knowing what it's like to be in highly tense situations is probably a huge benefit that I don't know if you've ever thought about or not. But the ability to be in a situation where your blood pressure's up, a lot's on the line, there's people staring at you, and you're just like, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I just need to stick to the script, or I'm going to stick to what I know and get through it, because you were cool as a cucumber for not being in a buyer meeting up until that point in your life. So,
No, I appreciate that. And, I thrive on stress, I guess you could say. And so that does elevate you. So use that energy in a positive way. Don't let it make you shut down. Make it so that you can communicate effectively what it is you're trying to communicate and get the buy-in from the folks you're presenting to.
and that came across clearly, right? So I think there was a good flow. Just so everyone knows, we did a demonstration. That is one of those things that I've seen fail way too many times because people
Yeah.
don't prepare. They just decide to show up one day and they're like, oh, this is going to be easy. And they do it and it falls apart. And if you want to crush the momentum of a meeting with a buyer, have your product fail, because I've seen it with my own two eyes and it is gut wrenching. But everything went smooth. They're engaged. You're doing your thing. Everything's working fine. So take us to the end. Like, what happens? Like, how did you find out that, yep, you got a gold ticket?
Well, it was at the end of the presentation, if you recall. We were done. We were wrapped up, looking at the faces of all four of the buyers. And I remember the lead, Chris, he looked at the other buyers and said, well, guys, what do you think? And with a smile on his face. And they all nodded their head, we like it. And it was at that moment, they all stood up. Chris pulled out the golden ticket, handed it to us. We shook all their hands. We went outside for a quick photo op, and we couldn't have been happier. It was an absolute elating moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's funny from my perspective is different but similar. I've spent years in buyer meetings, right? And so there's always, and I think you and I had talked about this prior to it. There had gotten to be a point in my professional career when I was just dealing in the corporate world that it became mundane. It was like, yep, I'm going to go in, we're going to lose $1 million, gain $1 million, blah, blah, blah. Because you do anything long enough, it becomes somewhat routine.
Right.
That was the first time I'd gone into a meeting not knowing how it was going to go, because I wasn't really in control, right? Open call is its own animal. It's its own beast. The buyers do a really good job, because they do this for a living, of trying to work with people who aren't used to it, of trying to diffuse. They try to lead it. They try to make sure that everything's okay, which I think they do a fantastic job, at least a couple times that I've been into it. As a guy who's been there, though, it's like, hold on, like, this is supposed to be my meeting. Not only is it not my meeting, Walmart's kind of running a little bit, and there's this Yahoo over here talking like I didn't have as much to do that I would normally have in a meeting. Yet for the first time in years, I was jacked up. Like, there was a very big different feeling. it's one thing if you're walking in as a corporation, you're like, well, we're doing $10 million. We want to do $11 million. Here are your three items. When you're standing next to someone who's invented something, created something, this is their livelihood. The sense of urgency and importance really gets escalated. And I think that's part of the vibe that you were talking about earlier, which was, man, there is excitement. Everybody's in that. Now, coming out is a little different because there are a lot of people that don't have golden tickets. There's a little bit of a sense of desperation that it changes. And I think, in my opinion, that's why Walmart almost funnels people different ways. Like as you come out, if you don't get a deal, you just kind of leave out the front door. There's some other things and there's stuff in the parking lot to do and stuff. But you get a gold ticket, you get funneled into basically a media
Yes.
thing. Like you can get interviewed, you go talk to Walmart people, you talk to different, and so you kind of separate. And you're standing in line with a bunch of gold tickets, so everyone is just jacked up, right? Like
Yeah.
it's one of the coolest feelings ever, even from someone who's been there a lot of times. Like that was one of the most fun sales days of my entire life. Like it was a really good time. So yes, I echo your excitement and level, and it doesn't go away. It's open call is more fun. So I went through it the second time this past summer. Or actually a couple months ago. And it was the same thing. There is still the sense of excitement and, I don't know, I hate to say it because it sounds a little heavy, but it's life-changing. Like it is life-changing for people to have that experience.
No, I agree 100%. It is life changing because it puts you on a trajectory where now, hey, you got the golden ticket. Now what?
Now let's talk about the real work.
Now let's talk about the real work because now you have to deliver. And I love a challenge. At that moment, after the celebrations were all done, it's come back and now get back to my office and let's get to work on working with Walmart and getting the product on the shelf.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about kind of the next, I always break up any launch with a retailer into three sections, right? There's the prepping, meeting, line review, which is looking at the industry. You've done all that. Then you have the meeting. After that, if you get an acceptance, there is the hard work, right? Which is item setup, vendor setup, getting everything moving, working in the system. And then there's the launch phase. So talk about that vendor setup, item setup.
Yeah, that was pretty heavy. I got to say, there's extensive layers of processes that need to be learned and executed in a very short period of time. The supplier agreement is the very first thing that you have to review and make sure you're comfortable with, and the pricing is proper, right? So you negotiate with Walmart. You sell it to Walmart at X, and they're going to retail it at Y. All of that information is part of the supplier agreement. And then you become a supplier with a unique ID. Then you have to navigate their supplier portal, which is a whole new learning experience. And then setting up the item is a whole new learning experience. And then, you have to get into the UL testing and the proper packaging for sustainability, which we covered in our presentation. And just learning all of the Walmart language and acronyms and the shipping requirements, all of that, Brian, was a lot of work. I will say that. So for someone to think that, hey, I got a golden ticket, now life is going to be easy, it's only starting to become a little bit more complex for you. Because when the world's largest retailer says, we want you, you better be ready to deliver.
Yeah. I think people, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, I think people assume that once Walmart brings you in, they have this huge event, right? You present to them. They're like, here's your gold ticket. We love to have your product on our shelves. That they're going to be holding your hand the entire way to the shelf. And that is not the case. They have jobs to do. The smiles go away. There are expectations. It really depends. Like we actually had a pretty young buyer who never set a supplier up before, right? So understanding that process on your side, like there are tools, there are some academies, things that you can go through that are helpful. But at the end of the day, knowing that process is vitally important, right? It's just it's not as easy as people think it is.
No, you're so right about that. I've got to say, through this whole process of getting it into one. By the way, Walmart is my very first large retailer, so it was a learning experience that I'll never forget. I probably purged a lot of the processes in my brain of those early years of getting set up. I've been in Walmart now for 2 years, so but they have a complex system. And you had to learn. I had to learn EDI, right? So it's not just there's so many different segments of getting your product into their system that you have to learn and become very proficient with. That it's going to take some time, and if you need help, look for help. I did a lot of research on the internet. Walmart does have some very helpful learning academies that you can engage with. Lots of documents that you can read and learn to understand. But Brian, to your point, nobody is holding your hand. Nobody. They have certain expectations at the meetings that we had, and you were a part of most of them with our buyer that was assigned to Hinge Hero. We met on a weekly basis for a long, long time, and he wanted updates. And if we didn't deliver updates, there could have been an issue. Fortunately, we're on top of our business, on top of our game. We had a great relationship with Steven, and it was pretty much flawless getting it launched. But then you've got replenishment that you have to really be aware of too, because once you get that first push out there of product, which is a whole new thing in itself, when you're taking a look at the relationship you have with your manufacturer and your logistics, staying replenished and making sure your product is ready to be shipped when the orders come in is another huge task that you have to be on top of.
Yeah, there's a piece of information that I've tried really, really hard to find. I've never been able to find, which is you can find out how many people apply for Open Call. You can kind of find out how many people get invited to Bentonville, right? Because there's different levels even within that. You could almost guess how many golden tickets are available, right? Because you can do some math. What they don't show, and I understand why, by the way, if I was Walmart, I would not do it as well. How many gold ticket winners get on the shelf? It's like Shark Tank. You talked about Shark Tank before.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, how many people apply? How many people get on it? How many people get deals? How many deals fall through? How many deals get exit? There's so many levels. It's really great, and I think it's awesome to get to that gold ticket, but I'd love to know the number of people that actually get on shelf, because I bet it's hopefully a good number, but it's probably a lot less than people think.
Brian, I have to agree with that. I was going through the steps, and I'm pretty laser focused on taking step by step and getting my tasks accomplished. But I can tell you, if you don't have the right people on your team, or if you're not the right person to navigate all of those processes, then you've got a challenge on your hands. I will tell you that. When people sit back and go, oh gosh, you're in Walmart stores, they really don't have any idea how much work goes into getting that product on the shelf, all the behind the scenes stuff that has to happen. So I would, one of my, recommendations to anybody that could be in the same situation is just keep plugging along, because to your point, I bet you there's a lot of great inventors out there that have great product, and maybe they're good marketers and they won their pitch and they got their golden ticket. But then, as we said earlier, that's when the work really begins. And if you don't have manufacturing, if you don't have logistics set up, if you don't have all of those elements that Walmart requires to be successful, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. And that's where I think Ready for Retail can certainly help anybody out there that is, going through this process. We have got this blueprint that I think is super exciting and would work well with most anybody in the same situation.
100%. So we've gone through the whole process. Can you give us just an update on where your product is, what's going on with it? Has anything changed?
Yeah, well, great question. So I'm excited to announce, and I know that you know this, but for the viewers' benefit, the Hinge Hero tool, just the one tool itself, was on Walmart shelves for now 2 years. Well, in that meantime, I expanded our business by actually producing our own lubrication spray, the Hinge Hero branded lubrication spray, and I've got a large commercial size Hinge Hero tool that is now packaged in a kit. So it includes the commercial tool, the residential tool, and a can of this 3-ounce Hinge Hero lubrication spray specifically formulated for hinges and locks. Went back to Walmart, did another pitch, and guess what? Now they're buying that product. What they're doing is they're replacing shelf space is extraordinarily rare in Walmart. And so part of our pitch was we'll replace the tool with the kit. And so that I think gave us kind of a foot up, if you will, with getting the kit on the retail shelf. And they love the kit. I went through the same process with the now demonstrating the spray, and that's where the business is today. So as we speak right now on the 29th of October, Hinge Hero lubrication kit is now being put on Walmart shelves around the country.
That's huge. Congratulations. That is awesome.
Thank you.
It's fun to watch. Like I know, part of this is interview style. I've got to ask the questions that I know the answers to. But your journey, I think, aligns with what most people would want, right? And there's a bunch of questions that I think people have that our job is to try and demystify some of it, right? For instance, I get asked all the time, well, should I start at Walmart or should I start at other retailers? Should I go to Ma and Pa? Maybe, right? But can you start at Walmart, George? Yes, you can, because you've done it, right? Like that is your first major retailer. Another one is, can you launch a singular item, right? Like a one-hit wonder, as we would call them in the industry. Yes, you can. But here's the key that you were talking about. Getting your foot in the door and getting a seat at the table is the hardest challenge. It is very difficult to get that shelf spot where you get put onto it. The second hardest thing is keeping it, right? And if you're not active in refreshing the product, coming out with a roadmap for next generations or an evolution, you will get lost. You will get lost in the dust because someone else is going to be coming for you. So kudos for one, recognizing that, finding the right partners, getting the right product in place to actually think about, how am I going to be here 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Because I can tell you, in my experience, as much as I love you, if it was that tool, you'd be gone in probably 3 years, right? Like there's a certain shelf life that's something that unrefreshed, someone else is going to come along with some other item. But boy, you've just extended that. And I'm sure you're already thinking, how do I continue to extend it? And now that you've built that foundation, how do you take it from Walmart to Lowe's to Home Depot to the other powers that be?
No, yeah, you're 100% right. And I would say, one of the most important things that helped the Hinge Hero kit is, of course, knowing the system and having the relationships. So it was basically, an email, hey, come on down, let's go ahead and pitch this. It wasn't an application process anymore because I was already a supplier. So once your foot is in the door, Brian, you're absolutely right. You have to continue to innovate. If you don't innovate, your product eventually is going to hit a dead end. And also, I want all the suppliers to keep in mind is that annually you have what's called a line review. And guess what? That's a check-in with all the bosses at Walmart, and they go over with a fine-tooth comb all of the sales metrics of your particular product. And if you're not hitting them, be prepared to have a very difficult conversation with those buyers.
Yeah, just as a education point for people, when you come in through the open call, it's not traditional is what I would call it. Typically, you would go through what's called a line review process. So what a line review process is, very quickly, we're actually going to put a lot of material to walk people through what a line review is, how long does it take, but everyone sits down with a buyer. And so the buyer will literally have meetings for 2 weeks. And in comes supplier A, they've got product already there. They're going through the product they currently have. What are they going to take off the shelf? What are they going to put on the shelf? Then they're talking new items, new suppliers come in. So that it's their time to take a look at the entire shelf, the category that they're dealing with, and do an overhaul. Right. And once they go through that line review, they'll make changes. They will redraw planograms. They will take things off and on shelves. And then they will do a modular that will go into the stores and get set. You do that every single, at most retailers, you do that every single year. Right. So it's to keep stuff from getting stagnant. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You can't set all the Walmarts in one day, right? You can't set 3,000 stores, whatever it stores in one day. So they go category by category, certain parts of the things, one resets in January, one resets in February, one's in March. They'll kind of poke around the entire store. So just so people understand that.
Yeah, that's great information.
Now, so we're kind of getting to the point of wrapping this up, but it's really important that we talk about this. Something was birthed out of this experience that you and I had, out of frustrations on both sides of the table, right? Like I had my own frustrations dealing with entrepreneurs that I get calls from all the time that I would love to help. I would love to be able to sit there, but you know this, if getting on a shelf is a 100-yard dash, I do the last 10 yards really, really well. That's what I'm an expert at. But if I found someone who's only 40 yards down, that was a frustration for me. I know that you've expressed, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on frustrations of information that's out there and kind of when we started talking about this whole ready for retail.
Yeah, I think we hit it off, Brian, from the very first time that we connected. I think we had mutual respect. I certainly respected you, and I thought you thought that my product and my story is very interesting and well. And so we really developed a friendship. We developed a friendship over the last 4 years. But I think we realized at that open call, the way that you and I worked together, we had a very profound synergistic effect on those buyers. And I think both of us realized that, hey, Brian, I'm pretty good at this front end stuff, and you're fantastic at the back end getting this stuff on the shelf. And that's where Ready for Retail kind of came into play. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for you and I to engage in and continue helping others. One of the common things that Brian and I have is we both are servant leaders, meaning that we love to help people. We've been on Zoom calls with a lot of different inventors, and we haven't gotten a penny for any of that. But that's okay with both of us because we legitimately and sincerely really want to help people. And if you can develop a business plan that helps what is a need out there in the marketplace, and Brian and I both agree that there is a need for people that don't maybe have my skill set and certainly Brian's skill set and our team skill set, that we can offer that to the folks that are just starting off, whether they're just starting off or they hit a roadblock somewhere in that process. We can help. We can help because we now have the whole journey mapped out from start to finish, meaning retail from idea. So I'm super excited, Brian, and I can't be more honored than working with you on this project.
Yeah, it's great. It's, for me, I think help is the biggest one. I started talking to, and like you said, George, you've been in a bunch of calls with me, bringing people in. I would consider George one of the best production, finding facilities, working a prototype, like on that side of it. And I've used him on other projects. So that is how I know that when we first started this. But seeing and going through open call opened my eyes to the idea that nobody was out there talking about the process from soup to nuts, right? From idea to shelf. There are really good people out there that can help you find a patent. There are people that can help you put together a presentation. There's way too many people that want to sell you social media marketing and all these things, and they're all kind of piecemealed. And depending on whoever you talk to, if you talk to a marketing person, they're going, "Oh, you got to spend $100,000 on marketing and social media." That's bull crap, right? Like there's a lot of bad information that's out there too. And so the whole concept is pretty simple. if you can educate people on the entire process in a way that makes sense and bring a network of experts and people who have done it, like George, to people and tell stories, listen to it, and then talk about coaching programs. Like if you've got to get ready for a pitch, all the way to the very end, which is, I need a manufacturer and I don't know where to start. We can help point you in the right direction, right? We don't manufacture, but we can get you to the right people. I need to put together social media, but I don't know what a brand guide is. I don't know how to put. We can put you in contact with the right people, all the way till, hey, I've got open call. I need that guy sitting next to me, right? And next time I'm sending George because he's just as good as I am. But that network, right, is what is important, and it's all based off of just good, honest information. That if you become a billionaire and you have a great product, awesome. I hope you think about us someday. If there are ways that we can help, that's great. It's just, there just isn't a lot of information out there. And I've been through, open call a couple of times. We went into the Blue, which is Lowe's open call. You'll appreciate this, George. You're number one for the right reasons. But we've got Shark Tank winners, more gold ticket winners. We got Lowe's into the Blue people coming up. We've got people that have gotten into retail the old fashioned way. We'll have people that have gone from nothing to multi-million-dollar businesses at retail. So our next probably 6, 7, 8 interviews, I think, will be just as good, if not better, for certain other reasons, because you and I know each other pretty well. So this is pretty, this is just another Tuesday of us just hanging out and talking shop for no good reason, because we like to talk shop.
Yeah.
I would like to end on this one thing. Everyone's got to have their, like, well, what are the 3 things? And I'm not big on that. But if you were to go back and talk to old George before he ever started this, what words of wisdom or warning would you give to yourself?
Well, I don't think it'd be words of warning. It would be that you tell yourself, I'm a firm believer in everything you do in life leads to another opportunity or decision that points to a different direction and alters your life. And I am one person that enjoys the challenges and I enjoy that journey. So I would just say, stay focused, believe in yourself, believe in your product, and just keep working hard. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take years. Okay. Remember, Hinge Hero was in 2018, and here we are in 2025. And just 2 years ago, it landed on Walmart's shelf. So be prepared to do that hard work. But I would say, if you want to, if you need help, first of all, let us know. We're here to help. You have to be positioned, Brian and I are, you have to be able to have a desire to help people. And if there's one thing that Brian and I have, we have the desire to help people, because we've been through and we've kind of taken the lumps and we know what the landscape looks like. What would I do differently? There's probably small incremental tasks that I might have done it this way or that way. But in general, Brian, every challenge I bumped up against has given me a learning opportunity that propelled me forward. So even those little lumps, to me, are a benefit, because I learned and I kept moving forward. And so I can't emphasize enough about just stay in the game, be committed to yourself and your product, and good things will happen.
Yeah, I've tried to think of all of the people that we're going to interview and kind of what my general take is from, if you're going to learn one thing from George, if you're going to learn one thing from Ryford, if whoever these people I'm talking to are, for me and you, it's preparation, right? Like, you are the king of preparedness, if that is a word, right? But I've been around a lot of people, both in the professional world and the entrepreneur world, and there are very few people. Like, you would think the corporate world is full of being prepared, and it is, but it's structured preparedness. Like, it is, we build a process around every little thing so that nothing falls through the cracks. You have that same level of preparedness that a corporation would have as an individual. And I respect that. But it's the lesson that I think, people should learn from this is be a Boy Scout, right? Be prepared. Don't show up half-assed. Don't show up not like, do your due diligence to understand. There's one word that I used to use all the time that the entrepreneur world has tainted for me. It's the word hustle, because I grew up as a hustler, football hustle, head heart hustle, like all of those things that we were taught. But in the entrepreneur world, when someone's like, I hustle, I do this, all that means to me is that you're running around unfocused. Like you're not prepared. You're not ready for that next step. You're just showing energy for the sake of showing energy, which at times could be good. It could be a benefit. I can tell you, dealing with large retailers, supply chains, manufacturing, sales, marketing, that's not really the way it works. Being very targeted, very focused, very prepared is what you do that I think has come through. And I hope that everyone, as they're listening to this, hears that preparedness that you have is why you're sitting there and having this conversation with me. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing this interview with us. Any last thoughts, my friend?
No, Brian, I would just say once again, for everybody that's out there watching this video, is just, stay positive, work hard, refine your approach as needed, and stay positive. I've dealt with rejection along the way, okay, and just expect that to happen more times than not. But just stay the course, stay focused, be prepared, and reach out for help if you need it.
Yeah, I mean, in full transparency, you and I both went to Lowe's Open Call and got skunked.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to make this seem like it's all, roses. And so what's going to be interesting. So is you're the first of a couple that we're going to do. Right. And so you got into Walmart open call, got a gold ticket, got skunked at Lowe's. I've got another person that we're going to talk to that got into Lowe's and skunked at Walmart, and the one that got both. Right. So like maybe I'll save them for last because they went into Lowe's, got the platinum and got the gold ticket, and I would love to be able to tell you why. Some of it I can't. Right. But
I can't either.
I can tell you the products when you hear them, or you'll be like, oh, that makes that. Why did that not? But I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play, but be prepared, be ready. We're going to come out with a bunch more cool stuff of learning from some really great, awesome people that have done this. And I hope every single person who's watching this at least gets something that you could take away from it. George, thank you. I look forward to it. We'll continue to talk. You're going to hear more from George because he is a founder of Ready for Retail, and he's going to be around and will be around as long as the ship is sailing. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.